Hello, and welcome to the No Limits podcast with Lisa Jakowski. Today with me, I have Rick Suvalle, the creator and producer of Dewdrop Diaries and the original creator and producer of Thomas and Friends, All Engines Go. We also have today a second guest, Craig Carlisle, the executive story editor and head writer who came in to take over for Rick on Thomas and Friends, All Engines Go, around episode 14 and have worked on the episodes since. How are you guys today?
Doing good.
Fantastic.
Thank you guys so much to be here. I am so excited to talk about your work and the brand new character that just came out in September. What was the inspiration for making a character have autism on Thomas and Friends, All Engines Go? Mr. Bruno.
Yeah, I'll start with this one, Craig. So the inspiration came actually from a Mattel executive, Monica Dennis. She, when we started talking about having me come on board to help create the new series, she wanted to, she had told me that a lot of the audience for Thomas, the original Thomas and Friends, was on the spectrum. And so she said she'd love to have that representation be on screen in some way. And so when she told me that, I was really excited about the opportunity to help, shed light on, neurodivergent, the neurodivergent community. And so we started talking about, what this character could be, who it could be. And, we originally came up, he was originally called, his name is Bruno the Brake Car. I think I originally called him Bruce the Caboose. And we liked the idea that he was at the back of the train because he's seeing the world from a different perspective, like a lot of people on the spectrum have. We're not saying they see things backwards, but it's just a metaphor for being seeing things differently, seeing the world in a different way. And we eventually decided to call him a brake car or a brake van in Europe, because it gives the character more agency. He's much more important because a brake car actually brakes the train. Slows it down when needed, and it's that extra power that the train needs. So we felt like that was a great way to start with this character, and we wanted to add certain spectrum aspects to the character. For example, a lot of people in the spectrum, I don't want to stereotype, but a lot of people like the schedules and the routine. And that's what I think a lot of people are drawn to about, a show about trains, because there are the delivery routes and there are cool maps and there are cool things that, that a lot of people find comfort in. And so, I think and so we came up with a basic character for him. I think when I left, he was still Bruce the Brake Car. And I think probably, it didn't clear and, legal clearances. And so Bruno probably came up. Craig might be able to talk on that. But for the most part, and a lot of the individual stuff after that, like I've seen the show where he has the Steam headphones that, like ear defenders. And I don't know if that was something that happened after I left, something that, Craig could probably talk on. But that's really the inspiration. Maybe Craig can tell you about where we went with Bruno after that point.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. When I came on, it was still in the infancy. He was still Bruce. They had an interesting sketch. And then sometime after I was into the groove, we started having meetings about who Bruce/Bruno would become. I believe it was a clearance issue because the name Bruno was just sort of popped up one day and that was his new name. Once we decided to go with it, I wrote a paragraph sketch of what the character might be. And then we launched into pretty intense days and days of meetings with Easter Seals, the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, ASAN. We worked with individual consultants like Aaron Likens. And we just had meeting after meeting, and all this was COVID time. So all of these, one Zoom after another, where we really sort of did a deep dive on just what a character like this might be like. For example, one of the things they kept talking about was how many kids on the spectrum have a fascination with trains. And so we flipped that and made it that Bruno has a fascination with humans. So he became sort of an expert on human behavior. If the engines had a question, why do humans do X, Y, and Z? He would be the one who would know the answer. So once we started doing that, then we moved into the vetting process of finding writers on the spectrum. Our primary writer has been a Canadian writer, Daniel Scherstrom, has written a lot of stuff. He and I wrote a special featuring Bruno together. We have done a lot of episodes, and he's a very good writer. He's done episodes that are not Bruno centric. But once we got to the point that we knew sort of who he would be and how realistically he might be, that's when we started rolling out what he might look like. And then that fell under the auspice of Joe Sikta, who is our creative producer who handles how the show looks, as well as overseeing what the writing department does. And he, with Monica and the animation house Nelvana, developed what Bruno looks like today.
That is so incredible. You guys did so much research. You put so much realism into it. And I love the fact that you really honed in on the sensory issues with the headphones. You guys were able to hone in on the fact he's got, this little bit of an obsession with humans. That is so relatable for families and for children. And it's just, you don't see that on TV, especially kids shows. Oh my God, it's so amazing to hear all this, to hear how much effort and work you put into it, because you don't see that. When I heard Bruno was coming out, I was so excited. I mean, Sesame Street has one, but you don't hear as much about it. And the promotion of Bruno has been incredible, and the support has been incredible. I've seen nothing but positive things, and you can see why. You guys really went above and beyond for Bruno. It sounds incredible. And I thank you guys so much for that as, a professional working with the community of autism too. Why was making this character on a relatively new version of Thomas the Train important to you guys and to Mattel?
I think it overlaps with the previous question. I think it was important for the representation because Mattel really knew the audience out there and really wanted to, have that representation on screen and behind the screen. We're living this fantastic time where everyone is pushing for diversity. We really want to have those voices make the world a richer place. And so if we can represent, behind the scenes and on screen, I mean, that's a wonderful thing. I mean, when I was still there, I was on the hunt for writers on the spectrum, and it was hard to find. And I interviewed a couple people, but it's just, so we really wanted to push for this. I know that was something that Monica and wanted to do at Mattel, make sure we get some people on the spectrum, to write for the show. And just like, but the same thing, in terms of, the casting of the characters, the other characters, there are characters who are Asian, there are African-American, so because we want that representation across the board. And so if we could find this small way to bring, the spectrum to light, we were all for it.
That is honestly so inspiring, because there is that big push for this right now, and we need to create more positivity around diversity and autism. And I keep hearing how children get so excited that they see themselves on the screen, that they see themselves in that book. Being a children's book author, I've met other authors that I've learned from when it comes to culture and diversity. And to have that on such an iconic show, I know this is a new version of Thomas, but that show is so loved, and it's back from 75 years ago. It's so incredible. And, to hear that an executive like her and, writers and producers like you guys, that it meant so much to you, that means so much to me. And I'm sure it's going to mean so much to everyone that's listening, and having that diversity, that's incredible. My best friend is Black Puerto Rican. My niece is Black Puerto Rican. And for her to grow up and watch Thomas and Friends, All Engines Go, and see characters on there that look like her, that is just so inspiring, so incredible. And I really hope we see more of this on TV, more of that diversity. You know, a lot of my clients are different cultures, which is amazing. I absolutely love that. And being able to say, like, hey, go look at this show, they can relate to it. That is just so incredibly special. The next question kind of overlaps with that a little bit too. Why do you guys think it's important to have representation of diversity on children's shows? Touched on it a little bit too, Rick.
Craig, you want to start with this one?
Sure. You know, it's interesting. Before I came to Thomas, I'd been the head writer for Pete the Cat on Amazon.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I did that for its entire run, 80 some episodes. And one of the interesting things we discovered is we got a lot of positive feedback from the ASD community because Pete rarely speaks. The pace of the show was very chill. And we found that there was an identifying factor there. And we got a lot of positive feedback, especially from the parents of kids with autism. So we tried to introduce a character to fit that community. And the only reason we didn't was the amount of work it takes to do it right. Amazon was all about doing it. And coincidentally, Monica Dennis was one of our executives there before she moved on to Mattel, which is how I got to know Rick and the rest of the people on the show. And we found that we just didn't have the time or the resources to do it right. And that's what Mattel did. They did it the right way, which was not to just be like, let's just throw them in. The thing I would say about representation on Pete the Cat, what we did do is we had a character who had two dads, and we didn't put a spotlight on it. It was just part of the show in the background. We still got a surprising amount of hate mail for it. But even though the characters were played by Jesse Tyler Ferguson and Jim Parsons, who are two of the most popular openly gay TV actors in America, we still got a lot of, hate mail about our political agenda, even though it was background. But our feeling was at the time, you have to let the kids be seen. And kind of like what Rick was talking about, this idea of you want a kid to be able to turn on the TV and say, that's familiar to me. I know that. Coincidentally, one of the stories that ran when we introduced Bruno was that Peppa Pig had two moms, a character with two moms. And so they were talking about the diversity. And, to me, it's also about not putting too much of a spotlight on him, but just including him in the day-to-day. So that kids start to see them as different in the way that every kid is different, but not special. They're just part of the group.
I think that's the most important thing, right? Yeah, I think that's the most important thing is the fact that he is part of the ensemble. He is part of this new version of the STEAM team, even though we don't call it the STEAM team anymore, but he's part of that team, and because you don't want to shine such a light on it that it makes them feel different again. You want to include it in the club,
And we've tried to do in episodes scenes where it's just a drive-by with him, where they just go by him, ask him a question, or he makes a joke, or is just there with the team without it being, a very special episode every time he's on the air. But we also do go head on with some of his issues. When they designed the character, they designed the ability for him to stim by flapping his stairs. The ear defenders, we call them that because the young actor who plays Bruno in the UK referred to his headphones as ear defenders, and we all fell in love with that phrase. So all of those things were developed with the consultants. And every time we do a script, I'm working on one with Daniel right now. Every time Bruno's on the screen, it goes through layers of consultancy to be sure we're not having him say the wrong thing, have him say it in the wrong thing. We try very hard not to make him other. We want him to just be part of the group.
I absolutely love that. And I love that you bring that up because there's a really big push for that too. And that's how it should be. The way I view autism is it's just a different way to learn. They shouldn't be seen as any different. And a lot of times when I'm asked to find books that are similar to mine, when I send it out to publishers, all the books that come up, it's one character. They're focusing on like a superpower, which I'm not knocking those books. That's great for them. But it shouldn't be singled out like that, is my feeling. And I love that you guys feel that way too. And the way you're treating Bruno on the show, you're not making him different. You're not making him special. He just learns differently and he has some different behaviors, but that's it. And that's really how it should be. And I love the fact that you brought that up too, and that there's a push for that. I love all the work and effort you guys are putting into this. And I love the name, the Ear Defenders. I worked with a client that had them as well. And people don't realize how much sound can really affect individuals. I've had people come up to me at fairs and say, once we figured out it was sensory for my child, all the supposed naughty behaviors went away. So bringing light to a lot of this stuff is so huge for families. It's such an eye opener. And, the fact you got families saying how much they loved it, that's so incredible and special, because sometimes we focus so much on the kid, we forget about the parents and how hard their job can be because the resources like this are not pushed like they should be. We need to put these out there so the parents can see too what their child can be capable of, what they can push their child to do. So this, oh my gosh, I love the fact that you guys do that. I love all this information. This is so incredible.
Yeah, I was going to say that speaking of the reception of it all, I mean, when I was first developing All Engines Go, I got a lot of hate mail. I got a lot of hate on Twitter because look, it's an established franchise. It's been on for it was on for 25 years, and people don't like change. A lot of people don't like change, and the fact that we're changing the show to 2D and that the protagonist is no longer voiced by a 33-year-old. It's all kids. The trains are the engines are kids. I got a lot of hate mail. And so, and a lot of it went away once they saw it. There was still a fair amount of people saying, I still like the other one. But when Bruno was announced and people started to see those clips, they were like, oh my gosh, that's me. I see myself. I would get tweets from people that would say like, oh, I use Ear Defenders too. And I was like, I mean, this is why when Monica came to me and said, I want you to create a character that's on the spectrum. This is what I was hoping for. I wanted that representation you're talking about, because I will say, I've got 2 daughters with disabilities. They both have type 1 diabetes, which is a really silent and hidden, disease. But and it gets confused with type 2 diabetes, and so they're the kind with insulin pumps and all that kind of stuff. And so it's really hard to represent that one, in terms of, because, I had a friend who was creating a show and he's like, I think we're going to put a type 1 diabetic in the show. And we're going to do a Halloween episode to introduce them. What candies can't they eat? And I said, they can eat all candies. That's type 2 diabetes. And then he's like, oh, but is there anything special that they should be eating on Halloween? I go, they should be eating whatever they want on Halloween. They just have to give themselves insulin to absorb that sugar. And so he's like, maybe we won't do a type 1 diabetic on the show. And so because it was too much, it's a lot of work to try and do it. I know, like just recently, the Pixar movie Seeing Red, and they had 2 type 1 diabetics in it, but they don't shine a spotlight, but they don't have any information on it. So, well, it's great to see a couple kids with pumps and constant glucose monitors on their arms. For my kids, they're like, oh, because when we see a kid with something there, we're like, it's a diabetic in the wild. It's like, because it's so hidden. People have it there, cover it up, and they don't show their type 1 diabetes. And so in the show, I think in Seeing Red, it was nice to see, but it's like, I don't think anybody watching understands what type 1 diabetes is from that. But like, for example, the Babysitters Club on Netflix, that show does represent type 1 diabetes really well, but I think it's an older show. So it's more like they're all like 13 years old in that show. Whereas when you get to the level that, the age group of Thomas and Friends All Engines Go, it's much younger. So it's like, there's a lot of explaining, like, I think kids can identify like, the Ear Defenders and, a lot of what, the personality traits of Bruno. Whereas, my kids, it's like, okay, now I'm gonna have a snack and I need to take insulin out and I need to give myself a shot right now. Shot's not working. Oh my God. So it was kind of like, it's really hard to show that one on screen at that younger age. So for me, it was very exciting to show some kind of, different type of disability out there.
If I may chime in about the first thing Rick said about the backlash that he got, because I remember when I was first writing for the show for Rick and we were becoming friends, he would send me some of these comments that he would get. And it's kind of hilarious. Recently, I had a new writer. All of our writers are freelance. I'm the only consistent writer. And one of our new writers was writing an episode about Kana, and I had written an episode called Kana Goes Slow. So I sent her the script. I wrote that for Rick. I sent her the script, and I tried to find it online so that I could link her just quickly so she could watch it if she wanted. And I couldn't find Kana Goes Slow, but I could find a heavily produced video called 45 Things That Are Wrong About Kana Goes Slow. And it was Thomas Kidd, who's now an adult, calling out all of the factual things. And one of the comments, one of my favorites, was someone said that Thomas could never pull Kana because his boiler would explode. And I was just like, okay, these are cartoons for 3 to 5-year-olds. Let's not go too into the weeds with the details, because the people who are hating on it, I get it. They see this as an attack on a beloved childhood icon. But if you really look at old Thomas, runs a little dark for a kid's show. I always say that the show Rick created is more fun and less murder than the old Thomas was. But that's just because by the end, it got really, the 3D Thomas could be pretty dark. They had crime, they had all sorts of things going on that were not pre-K appropriate. They were okay for an older kids group, but not for this group. So it's remarkable. I recently got a LinkedIn message from a kid saying, how do you feel about the fact that so many people hate it? And I was just like, yeah, I don't have a dog in that fight. I didn't grow up watching it. Rick Suvalle was the guy who reinvented it, but he didn't reinvent it for adults. He reinvented it for the kids, and kids love it. I mean, we've been very fortunate. It's being very well received. And the response to Bruno has been, I was shocked. I thought it would be like, oh, we'll be out, we'll be here, we'll be there. But it was, when I Google searched it midway into the day, it was the first, I think, 15 pages of Google search were nothing but Thomas and Bruno. It was everywhere. I mean, it was crazy.
That's incredible. I've seen the same thing, and it still blows my mind that you guys would get hate mail, and I totally agree with you. I think they're being too literal. They're taking it a little too seriously, but I love that it's turned into the positive stuff. I feel like there's a good, there's a bad with everything. It's still like crazy. Like even before it came on, there was hate mail. That is so nuts. I don't know how I would handle anything like that.
I mean, you just I don't know. I mean, you don't engage at that point. There was I will just say a funny point where someone had written some fake quote on me. You feel like you've made it when someone fake quotes you. But someone
I've never had that.
According to producer Rick Suvalle, Carly the Crane, and so and so. Sandy is the child of Carly Crane, proving in the new Thomas that engines and trains can reproduce. And then everyone's like, "What? This is crazy! Trains and engines can't reproduce." And then at one point, I couldn't help myself. I chimed in and I wrote, "I'm pretty sure Rick Suvalle didn't say that." And then like. I mean, I got tons of likes on that one. Someone's like, "Oh, there's a pulse going on behind the scenes," So that was just a funny.
That's hilarious.
That is hilarious, because I feel like they do that with everything. With social media being so crazy and kids being so young having access, I feel like everything gets twisted and turned around.
Yeah.
But I love the support and how happy people are with Thomas and friends, all engines go, and the character. It's so amazing. What do you guys hope children take away from watching Bruno?
yeah, I think because Craig was grabbing a sip of his caffeinated water. I'll jump in. Yeah, I just hope they take away what we've been talking about. That they can see diversity on screen and realize that that people that are diverse are no different than you or I. You know, and that's really what I want them to take away. And also kind of an understanding, not just that they're not different, but also an understanding that there are some differences for sure, but they're they're just as normal as we are. But because we all have things that other people don't see. You know, we all have these weird, you know, not that anything is weird. I don't want to step in it.
I'm with you.
It's just, you know, we all have things that we are struggling with that aren't seen. You know, and someone on the spectrum, it might be more visible out there. And so I want people to say, hey, that person, you know, needs to do this. You know, they need to put on you know, Steam headphones, you know, to deal with the situation. That's okay. So I want people to be more sympathetic and empathetic to situations that are foreign to them. You know, I want them to take away and say, you know, we're all different people, you know, and, you know, whether it's someone on the spectrum or someone from a different race or a different gender, you know, I want people to, you know, look at this and look at this and say, we're all in this together.
I agree with that 100%. It's about feeling seen for the kids who might be neurodiverse, but also just to me, it's about they're just part of the group. Some of the things they do are different, just like that there are things that I do that are different from Rick and from you, Lisa. It's like I'm probably the only one who collects Hummel figurines. I don't collect Hummel figurines. My mom does though, so we'll have her on next time. But I feel like to me, it's the whole thing is about leveling a playing field that hasn't been level. You know, it's also the fact that Rick and I are both part of what would be considered the dominant ideology, straight white men of a certain age. And I think part of our job as straight white men of a certain age is to recognize the need for diversity, to recognize and want to be a part of the change. And for characters in kids' show, to me, what I want is for the kids to enjoy the show, for the kids to see Bruno and identify Bruno as part of a show that they enjoy. When most kids are watching Thomas or like with Pete the cat, they're not going to have the same reaction as a kid with ASD who wants to sing along, which was one of the letters we got, a mother whose son was trying to sing with the show, which had never happened before. So the more we can have little moments like that, those are little windows into a bigger reality, right? So the more we can have kids walk away from the show just thinking that Bruno is quirky and fun and a good person to have as a friend, then we've succeeded. And if the kid who identifies with Bruno sees himself as just being part of the group, of finding the group of friends who just is accepting, which is what we all are looking for, is acceptance, then we've succeeded. But mostly the show should be fun, because then they're going to walk away with positive views about all the characters, regardless of race, gender, neurodiversity, whatever it is.
Yeah, we definitely want people to see themselves, you know, and that's, for me, I just remember seeing the promotions for, you know, Black Panther when that came out, and, you know, you see the little black boy go, oh my gosh, finally a superhero that's like me, you know. And it's, for me personally, it was like when American Girl dolls came out with the first type 1 diabetic doll. And so, you know, and it was like, my daughters are like, oh my gosh, there's a doll that is like me. You know, it doesn't, I don't have to get that matching outfit. They have a, you know, a constant glucose monitor like me. And so I think that it's those type of moments. I want kids that watch, you know, I want kids on the spectrum that see Bruno to go, yes, I identify with that character. And I love all these characters. And like Craig was saying, it's like, he's one of the gang, you know, and it's like, we're all, you know, we're all quirky in our own ways, all of us, as I was saying before. But I just want people to, you know, embrace Bruno as just another one of the members of the Biggest Adventure Club, which is what the group calls themselves on the show.
I absolutely love that. And that's really how it should be. They should be able to really relate and be able to, just be one of the other kids. Just like, with your daughters with diabetes, they should have those resources out there to be able to relate to. And that's why I think the show is so successful and this character is so amazing, because you guys really want that. You want to show that diversity and really show that it's nothing different. We're all the same. It just doesn't matter. Oh my God, this is so incredible. I absolutely love that. That is amazing. And I really hope too this leads to more representation on television and, in other companies and shows. And it really inspires them to do more stuff like this, because we need more of those resources put out there. We need more positive resources. And you brought up a good point, being straight white men, you're doing something different than what's expected from you. That's exactly why I wrote my books the way I did too. And to hear you guys say that is so incredibly special and heartwarming, because I never would have thought about that outside of like writing my books and the authors that I talk to. But to hear that people like you in the television business feel that way, that gives so much hope for bringing more representation to TV and just showing everyone that we're not different. We're all the same. We just have, our skin colors or, our genders are different, and that's no big deal. I really, really appreciate that. And the fact that you guys are doing this, that is so incredible. Can you tell us what is your favorite thing about writing the character of Bruno and about writing in general? Favorite, best thing?
I'll start, Craig, since since Craig has done way more writing of Bruno than me, so my answer will be much quicker. But I will say, so I unfortunately wasn't there when we got. Craig was there for all the amazing research and worked so hard to get this character right. You got to give credit to Mattel for really, doing the right thing, doing it the right way, and making sure we really represented correctly. So I wasn't there to get to write for Bruno. And here's the scoop for your listeners: is I've been invited back to Thomas to write a very special episode coming up, and I've been working on it for Craig, and I get to write for Bruno for the first time, and I got to say, it is so gratifying. He's such a fun character to write for. And then, then Craig will completely rewrite me. But no, it's been an amazing experience getting to come back after this amount of time and seeing the love for Bruno and getting to write for that character. And just the general part of it, my favorite part about writing in general is the breaking of the stories, getting together with the other writers and figuring out the pieces. And the extension of that is the outlining, because then you're kind of connecting the dots. I am a real, plotter when it comes to writing scripts. And I feel like Craig, one of the things I loved about Craig as a writer and why I request that he be my replacement was because he brings this whimsy to his writing and musicality to it that is not my strong suit. And he that like Conago Slow episode, he does like one with Backwards Day for us, where it's like he just has this playfulness that really speaks so well to kids television and this show in general. So I really I loved working with Craig on the show, because he, you talk about diversity is also different voices, and Craig is a different voice on the show than me, in terms of our abilities and what you need in that writer's room. And so it was such a joy working with him that I was like so excited that I'm like, okay, we've given the reins to the right person. We really have.
Well, thank you. I think we should just end the podcast right there. But I would say, first of all, it's funny because Rick and I are very yin and yang in that I'm all about the script itself. I'm about the dialogue, the whimsy. On Pete the Cat, we had songs in every episode. If you're familiar with the show, it was like Elvis Costello, Dave Matthews, Diana Krall, Kate Tunstall, Don Was. We had all these great musicians involved, in addition to some great actors. And so I do, the musicality is also that I've written about 150 kids songs. So I love all of that. And I am a theater guy originally. I was an actor first, and then a playwright, and then a director for years before I started into kids TV. So I approach kids TV as something I didn't even learn about till I was a less than young adult. So when I go to a show, to me, it's about hearing the voice in my head, which makes me sound a little bizarre, but it's the undiscovered country of where they're going to go next. That's the part that's exciting to me. And with Bruno specifically, it's been a real journey to see how similar I am to many of the ASD kids. Like how many traits that people will isolate for them that exist individually in us. Like I count my steps, I've discovered when I walk. I'll have a number running in my head constantly of counting my steps. I'll count how many cuts it takes to put a banana into a bowl of cereal. I just do that constantly, which is apparently an aspect, it can be an aspect of the spectrum. And so learning more and more the ways in which I can identify with this character. I grew up actually coincidentally on a train yard in Indiana. So I grew up watching trains, being obsessed with trains, keeping track of all the different cabooses, as we called them, because they had ceased to be brake cars. I mean, that's the funny thing. The brake car is actually a nod back to retro Thomas, because all engines and boxcars have air brakes now. They don't need a brake car. But the brake car used to exist because the only brakes were engine brakes on the engine and then the brake car. And that's how they would slow the train. So it's a throwback to old Thomas. But to me, to go back to the original question, it's always just trying to find the thing that nobody's going to expect. And building these scripts, especially, I learned a lot about structure actually from Rick. And I still use his way of plotting out the outlines, which I never credit him for. But I use his very rigid structuring of the plot because it helps me to build the story. Once I'm in the story, I can write a script in a couple of hours. Because if I have a good outline, the dialoguing is the part that's fun and easy for me. I just burn through it. It's the laboring over the story is the part where I rely on Rick's very structured system of breaking the 3 acts. But I think the other thing I'll say, the final thing about writing kids TV, because again, I was like 40 before I ever wrote a kids episode, is it's a puzzle, because it's a balance between trying to write a super clear story that has a super clear theme. Thomas, just like most of the shows I've worked on, have been social literacy rather than, like Bubble Guppies or a reading show where there's a specific learning model. Thomas is about, basically don't be a jerk, right? How to be a good person in society, which is super important right now. And so to get a theme like that across while also trying to write in jokes that parents will find funny and to create songs that won't make parents want to run screaming from the room is the balance. I always say when we go into our song brief meetings for Thomas, all of my goal is to make it pop songs that kids like, not kids songs. Because the more you get into a plinka plunka kid songs, the more you're going to have parents who won't be in the room, which makes the kids less inclined to watch. Kids want something that their parents enjoy with them. So those are the things, those are the challenges that I go after in a kid show, is how do I make it that the kids love it, but that the parents also find things about it they like. Most of the time those jokes get cut, but it's still fun to write them.
So I was gonna say that must be why it's so popular, because you actually want the parents to like it too. I work with kids right now part-time as well. I mean, I've worked with kids for years, but there's definitely songs that we've talked about that it's like, oh my gosh, we can't, they sing it so much. So the fact you actually want to write and play into that too is pretty amazing. You guys make writing sound like it's so much fun.
Well, it can be. It's not the most profitable field to launch into until you sort of fight through the years of working in an office or a restaurant, but it is fun.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's like, I mean, it can be really difficult, but it's like, you love that you're able to write and that this is we love that this is our job. And so, but there are definitely difficult parts of the story. There's definitely difficult notes that come in that just don't make sense sometimes, and you're trying to figure out what's the note beneath the note, and get to the root of the problem. And but in the end, I mean, once you see that final script and once you've gotten there, usually you're like, this is really good. I really enjoy this. Of course, it's the odd stinker of an episode, but what do you think?
Well, I think too, when you hear the kids doing it, the kid actors doing it, always makes it, because like with the songs, we get the record from the composer. Like the writer of the episode and I will create the song, and then the composer will send it back to us, and then you have like this middle-aged guy singing a song, or a woman singing a song, harmonizing with herself, and it sounds lovely, but it doesn't sound the way it's going to sound when a kid does it. So when you actually hear the scripts being done by the kid actors, it just really makes it bubble in a way that's always pleasantly surprising.
I'm sorry. I was just to say that, like, I am not the best at writing songs, and I wrote the theme song to All Engines Go, thanks to Joe, our creative producer of the show. But we wrote it together. But so I'm a little nervous. I just handed in my script last night to Craig with some songs in it, and so I, for the first time ever, had so much fun. So I'm going to be devastated when Craig with his musical comments goes, "This is garbage, Rick." No. He will not. He will say,
I think you've been in my shoes. What I'll say is, these are great. And then when you see the episode on the air, you're like, I didn't write that song. I'm like, yeah, but you still got credit.
Don't change it until after I'm done with the process, so that I don't have to. I don't. I'm joking.
Looking forward to reading it. Listen, man, you sell yourself short. You. Yeah. I remember when we first started doing the show, and I was literally winding down Pete, and you were like, "Yeah, I'm not really the song guy," and I was just like, because that's all I had done for the last 4 years was, a song in every episode, and they had to be good because I knew that like some famous pop singer was going to be singing it. So we were like, and it was with Swampy Marsh, who was the guy who created for TV Pete the Cat, and he co-created Phineas and Ferb and Milo Murphy's Law, and so the bar was really high. And then I came to see Rick, and he's like, "Yeah, so much for the bar." But then I see the shows, and I'm like, "What are you talking about? All the songs are great. Why are you acting like they're not great?"
To me, it was crazy that I was rewriting songs that writers. But I was like, okay, but no, I feel good about these Christmas songs. These songs.
These not revealed to the public subject songs.
Oh, it doesn't come out till after Christmas. Don't worry.
I'm surprised the Mattel Mafia hasn't just made your screen go dark in the middle. What happened to Rick? Where did Rick go? Mattel got him.
I got some early scoop.
Anyway.
Yeah, you got a scoop. Thanks, Rick. Thanks. I'm telling Monica.
I won't tell anybody, I promise.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear the songs now and be like, I knew about these.
Wait until a year from Christmas.
Yeah. That's the other thing.
Right now.
Well, that's the funny thing about animation, I think, that many people don't know. Certainly my friends in theater, and I have lots of writers for live action television friends. I've been in show business for 30 years. I know lots of people, right? And they'll say, "Oh, when is your first Thomas coming on the air?" I'm like, 15 to 18 months from now.
Yeah.
Because that's the lag time on animation. And most people do not know that. So
that's awesome to know, because I got some questions about like writing and everything too. So for anyone who's inspired, who hears this and wants to become a writer, I think that's great to know, because I definitely didn't know that.
Yeah, we did the first episode I did of Thomas. We did a New Year's special that we started in October of 2016, and it was a rush so that it could be ready for New Year's 2017. So that was it was considered a rush because we got it done in 14 months.
Wow.
And by the way, I want to give a shout out to Laura Nikolic, who's the one who runs the music department for Nelvana. And she's the one that we do the song briefs with. It used to be Norm Beaver, who has since retired, but Laura is just amazing. And she's so much fun to work with. It's usually she and Joe and I and a few other people, and she catches the song, she relates it to a composer who develops it, and she's just a wizard.
It sounds like a really incredible team. And I mean, you guys got renewed for 2 more seasons. How exciting is that? It really honestly sounds like you have the best people on the team for the show. And we get 2 more seasons. And we know we're getting
I would
to
speak to that. The hardest part of something like that is, since I took over in August of 2020, I've overseen, I think, just over 100 episodes, which means when we get a 2-season pickup, that means it's another 52 that we have to come up with. So it's sort of like we're trying not to go into, Thomas gets into a knife fight when he's in Peel Godred, and he's okay, but he kills a guy. Like, we can't do that episode. So we have to find the new ones. I just did a story summit, and the writers just really stepped up and brought all these wonderful new ideas, fresh turns, fresh takes. And it's really revitalized me. Because I was telling Rick, we just went through a log jam where every story we had, we were like, no, we've done that before.
Yeah, it's like I mean, these big orders for kids TV, it's a blessing and a curse. I mean, you look at a show that's like, on Netflix now, and it's 10 episodes, and that's it. And they have another season, another 10 more. And like, Greg's like, I got to do 52 more. And it's like, he's like, oh my God. You're like, how do I come up with 52 more ideas? I just remember like hearing Larry David talk when he created Seinfeld, and Seinfeld had the shortest order in the history of NBC at the time, which was a 4-episode order, 4 episodes. And then they called him up and said, they want to do 2 more. And Larry David said, oh, I have to come up with 2 more stories. That was his response.
Yeah,
that's so crazy.
When I wrote for Arthur, the kid show Arthur, when I first started, I asked the production team to send me the script tracker, which is the list with brief descriptions of every episode ever written, because I was going to a story summit and I didn't want to repeat ideas that had been done before. And they sent me 414 episodes. So I was just like, I'm like trying to reproduce Hamlet's character arc for Arthur.
There we go. He froze a little bit.
Did you lose me for a minute?
We did.
Oh my gosh. And it was pearls. There's no way to recapture it. Let's just move on. I was just saying that, like Rick said, when you've done 104 and you have to do 52 more without a break. In fact, they overlapped our production schedule.
Oh, really?
It really is a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of work. And in the end, it becomes a lot of fun. Oh, no. Am I gone again?
No, we got you this time.
Oh, thank goodness. It's just you guys froze, and I'm like, well, that means I'm frozen.
That's okay. We won't worry about it. But this is like great stuff to hear and know, because I had no idea that the show came out every single week of the year. And I've read like books about Grey's Anatomy where, they did so many episodes and how stressful it was. And, they hope that they don't do that anymore. So I can't imagine coming up with for a kid's show. Oh, my Lord. All those different stories. It's so cool. You go to get ideas. That's got to be so much fun.
Fun and challenging, because they're on rails. They don't eat. They don't do a lot of things that kids would do. So it makes it just... It's more of a challenge, and that's fine. I mean, that is part of the excitement.
Yeah, it is for sure. I remember, Craig, I was on an unknown, I'm not naming, other train show, Summit, a while back, and they were just trying to launch this show, and they said, yeah, we want the trains to always open having fun, like they're playing soccer. And I was in the room, and I said, how do engines and trains play soccer? Like, they're stuck on the rails. What if the ball goes off the rail? They're like,
yeah.
And then they just didn't do the show.
Yeah, I still have new writers, really good writers, who in their premise will be like, and then Thomas picks up a piece of wood and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, he doesn't have hands. Doesn't have hands. He's an engine.
They get
Can't
excited
pick it
and
up.
forget.
He might bonk it with his wheel, but can't pick it up.
That was an early fight of mine in the very beginning when I was there, because in the early animatics of the show, we would see them gesturing to everything with their wheels, like they were hands and stuff like that. There was tons of that stuff, and they were using it all the time. They were using their hands to pick stuff up. And I said, no, 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 no. So I think, I think real eagle eye watchers will see the occasional need to do something, but a way they hold something, but they really don't pick stuff up. They don't, and they do this whole bumping and shimmying and stuff like that.
Hip checking.
A letter from his mail cart, but I know, like, true diehard original Thomas fans, not a fan of even some of that behavior, but we did. They should know we did our best to curb that behavior. I mean, they were literally like, "It's over there. Oh, hey, let me grab this. I'm drinking tea." I mean, it was like.
I remember a wheel picked up something and they looked at it and I was like, how is he holding that? He doesn't have opposable thumbs. He's only got wheels.
We did. I mean, I was on a show. I was the head writer of a show called The Stinky and Dirty Show at Amazon, and so on that show, we allowed the characters to have use their wheels as hands on that show. But that was its own show. It was an original, and so we were able to break those rules on that show.
Well, I think the whole point is the rules, right?
Yeah.
You set the rules, and then you have to stick with them or go against them.
Yeah.
It's just so funny. I love how you guys make it so realistic like that, So like diehard fans of like trains can really relate to it. I think that's amazing. You guys have any other characters for the show or any other shows in the works that you can talk about that represent diversity in some way?
I do. I mean, I've got a new show. I mean, the reason I left Thomas was because another show that I had created, got picked up. I created an original show that was inspired by my daughters. Not necessarily their diabetes, but I was just inspired, being a dad of two girls, to do a like kind of a girl power show and show that there's no break every glass ceiling kind of thing, that there is no glass ceiling. And so it's a show about these little tiny fairies that secretly live in kids' houses and help them with the little things that can fall through the cracks, like making sure your first lost tooth makes it under your pillow before bedtime, or that your favorite toy doesn't get left behind at the park. And it's called the Dewdrop Diaries, and it's with DreamWorks, and it's going to be on Netflix starting in June. Craig guested on there as a writer, Tooth Fairy episode, and so he did one.
Right.
He did one where the kid has a loose tooth, and the dewdrops are trying to get it out so the kid can get $1 to buy something he wants. So there's this whole episode trying to get the tooth out.
That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun to write. There were a few times when we went a little too far in the mouth, but aside from that, it was a lot of fun.
But that's where Craig, again, with the whimsy, that's such a whimsical type of episode where like the tooth fairy comes in and they're trying to like scam the tooth fairy a little bit, and they're like, stay back while we get that tooth out so we can get that money for the kid.
And they fangirl on the tooth fairy.
Yes, they do.
They take
selfies with the tooth fairy. So
that's adorable.
Yeah, so that's an exciting show that's going to be out on Netflix in June. And again, so you talk about how long it takes to make TV. I pitched that show to DreamWorks, who's our production company, and that's who I technically work for. I pitched that 5 years ago. And so we spent like 2.5 years in development. We spent the past 2.5 years in production. And you're finally going to see it in June. So it takes a long time, especially when a series is just launching. Once you get going, it's more like the 15 months that Craig talks about in terms of when you come up with the idea and they can get that episode going. But that whole launch of a series is a long, labor-intensive,
And the show looks great, by the way. The clips
you.
I've seen of the show, the animation is great. The writing is fun. It's going to be a lovely show. Really lovely show.
Oh, I can't wait to watch it and show my boyfriend's daughter. She'll love it.
It's going to be a good one.
Well, I actually am creative consultant on another show that definitely falls under the rubric of diversity. It's a show called Hey
Right.
AJ for Disney
Uh-huh.
that was created by Martellus Bennett, who is a former NFL player who saw that his daughter, he's African American, there
Yeah.
weren't a lot of representation for her, so he created these really fun books that when I was working with Swampy Marsh for Pete the Cat, we pitched Martellus, and he partnered with Surfer Jack, which is now partnered with Sleeping Giant to become Surfing Giant Studios,
Oh
and
my
that show's
God.
being developed right now for Disney. We're in the script
Wow.
phase now, and that's fascinating because talking about the straight white man of a certain age, I
Yeah.
am the only person not of color in the writers' room.
Oh my
And
God.
it's been fascinating. It's been a window opening for me because my job really is to help shape the pre-K vibe, and also the Surfing Giant vibe, because I ran a number of projects for them. But mostly it's for me to sit there and learn, because it's a
Right?
culture I've been around my whole life but know nothing about. And the show is going to be so good. The art is fantastic. The writing's fantastic. Sid Ventris is the head writer on that, who's a big talent, been around the business for a long time, and a staff of young writers who are just so talented. So I'm looking
Oh,
forward to that. But I'm just a creative consultant on that one. Uh,
you need to let me know when it comes out. My niece would love it. She's 4. It sounds incredible. And she loves
the,
Disney stuff. Yeah.
She'll be 47 when it comes out, though.
I was
So.
gonna
yeah,
say, if it comes
yeah.
out like
She'll be, if we rush it, she'll be in high school by the time it's on the air. But no, we're already starting. Today, I'm going to write a song for one of the episodes, and we're already recording the first
Okay.
episode. So it's coming together. I also wrote a couple, and this is just fun, Bat Wheels, which just launched, which is a show for the Batman fans, kids.
oh my
It's a
gosh.
pre-K show about the vehicles in the Batman universe. So, and it's a lot of fun,
Oh,
and it looks great, and also has great music. Mike Stern is the Rick Suvalle on that show for Warner Brothers, and it's just really fun. I think Ethan Hawke is voicing Batman for that show, but it's mostly the vehicles. So it's really fun, and it's on the air now.
oh my God, I need to check that out because that sounds amazing. I mean, I'm still like a big kid. I love, the fact I work with kids and like my niece and my boyfriend's daughter, no matter what age we get to, even my best friend, we're all still like big kids. So,
Well,
rather
that's the lie of being an adult. I keep expecting to feel my age, and I don't.
exactly. It's just more responsibilities. That's all. It doesn't mean you can't still be a big kid. I love it. I'm so excited. I'm gonna check it out because, like, I love comic book stuff like that. So that would be really cool to me too. And like the daycares that I go to, I can tell them to check it out. Like, I can't wait for all this. I'm so excited. You guys have some amazing stuff coming out. Definitely let me know. Like, I will love to promote it. It sounds incredible.
Absolutely.
What is your best advice for any aspiring story writer, and especially for a writer trying to make a difference and help with that representation, getting out there on TV more?
Rick, you want to?
You want
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, you're like, I'll take the time to think about my answer.
Go crazy. I'll try to come up with something.
No, so you're saying advice for aspiring writers and specifically diverse writers, or just about representing diversity? Is that the question?
Yeah, representing diversity on TV, whether as I guess we could do it both, having representation on TV and for a writer that is neurodivergent. Any advice for kind of like those two types of writers?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, I think for writers that are diverse, write about your diversity. I mean, write a great pilot. I read so many great, I really, for my new show, The Dewdrops, I have, I try to get as many diverse voices in there as possible. And so I read a lot of scripts, and it was like, about people would write like a half-hour pilot about their family, their heritage, their, issues that they're going through. And I think that was really, refreshing to see, seeing some cultures that I hadn't seen before in some of these pilots, and seeing that, and just like what we were talking about before in terms of representation in general, it's just like it's a sitcom comedy, just like every other sitcom comedy out there, but I'm seeing a fresh perspective, a fresh voice, because it's set, with a slightly different culture, but all our cultures are so similar, when you boil it down, that you're recognizing stuff. It doesn't feel like it's so niche. You feel like it is a general thing, you feel like some of these things, I've got a Jewish mother, and so you can see like an Italian mother having similar, traits and stuff like that, some of them could be overbearing or something like that, so it's like, or if you have a Haitian mom,
Food on you.
it's the same type of thing. So if you really highlight your culture and really kind of tell a story that is, something that we can all access and all get into, but share your culture and your POV as part of it. And I think the same thing goes for, a neurodivergent writer. I mean, I think there might be some extra hurdles in terms of, in terms of that, but don't be afraid to ask for help. It's because, people that have these fantastic pilots out there, they've gotten help too. They've had friends, they've had people in the industry look at them and give them notes and stuff like that. So, don't be afraid to ask for help. If you're not great, like if someone has, I know a writer with dyslexia, and so it's like, so they might have to have a proofreader, before they get established, to come through and say, okay, oh yeah, you're, and so I think it's okay to ask for help, and don't be afraid. And especially, and Craig will attest to this, in children's animation television, everybody is so supportive of everybody else. It really is like, it's almost, in terms of how nice people are, in terms of how they want to help people. They really want to reach out and help people, rise up. And so don't be afraid, especially if you want to get into kids television. I think there's a lot of more opportunities for writers there in terms of, and especially, and we're really, our community of children's writers really are embracing the diversity, I think, more than any other part of the business. We really are trying to push that through. So I think if you are, diverse and you just don't think you have a place out there, or you're neurodivergent and you don't feel like you do, and I think Thomas and Bruno is showing the world that for neurodivergent people, that there is a voice out there, because even the actors that are voicing it are on the spectrum. Bruno is voiced by someone on the spectrum, and so we're really representing all the way through. So I think that would be my core advice.
Love it.
I would just add to that first of all, you couldn't have a better time to be neurodivergent or a diversity writer, because Hollywood's finally waking up and saying we need to represent everyone, right? So that's good news. So moving past that, I would say do the work, because the biggest problem I have when I read scripts is I'll see they're a talented writer who doesn't know that there are a million rules to writing pre-K, for example. Like you can't put writing on the screen because half your audience can't read. So you can't do that. Can't put a clock on the wall and expect them to understand it. There are rules to follow. So when I used to teach playwriting, I called it the Picasso problem. That these writers would write these sort of crazy avant-garde pieces because they didn't know structure. They wanted to be Picasso doing Dada, not recognizing that Picasso learned how to do landscapes and portraits before he broke the rules. He learned the rules. And so my advice is learn the rules, do the work, learn how to write a structured piece, because that's one thing kids have zero patience for. They'll take just about anything, but if a story doesn't make sense, they're out. They're just done.
100%.
So, and I grew up with, my joke is that my mother put the Grimm in Pilgrim. It was, it's very Midwestern, but also my mom, both my grandmothers, most of my aunts were all public school teachers. So I would say, remember, also a lot of my cousins, uncles, it's crazy. It's a thing in my family, not me, but them, is to remember that those are also a great ally. because like with Pete the Cat or with Thomas, teachers use those teaching supplies related around these characters. And so the more you hear what they have to say about the product you're producing, the better that product's going to be. But mostly for the young writer, it's like also be patient. It's a war of attrition. Sometimes you don't make it until all the other writers who are fighting for that one slot have given up. And so if this is the only thing you can do, this is the only thing you should do, no matter what it takes. That's my other advice, because I wasn't successful till I was 50. So it's worth the wait. If I'd given up like, well, I'm going to give up if I'm 35 or 40 and I don't make it. And, you know, I was making a living directing theater and stuff, but it wasn't, you know, it was my wife was supporting me.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of being patient, working hard. And I think Rick's thing of asking for help, especially in kids TV, because Hollywood is amazingly like somebody gets help and then they don't want to help anybody else. Everybody's fighting to protect their little mound. And the good news is in kids TV, you don't see that as much. People tend to be much more generous and supportive, which is also when they start talking about Writers Guild and becoming like bigger salaries and everything. I'm just like, let's slow down a little bit. Let's protect our mound with all of us in it and not worry so much about this idea of the glamour or the show business side, because that's not the world that we operate in.
I agree. I think this is perfect advice. Thank you guys so much for that. You know, and I hope we see more neurodivergent writers too out there. You know, I know another author who he wrote an amazing book called I Am Odd, I Am New. You know, and he has autism at 16 years old. And I really hope we see more authors like that, more people in television like that are writing. That was perfect advice, you know, because it is hard to break into. But the perseverance, hearing your stories, hearing the fact that it took you a while to get there, I think that's so inspiring. And it can be so helpful for others that are listening to this, you know, especially knowing that you guys work on these shows, they're going to want to relate and be, you know, so excited. So hearing that, I think that's amazing. Is there anything else you guys are working on that you want to talk about that's coming up?
Mostly just more and more Thomas. More and more Thomas. A little engine who could. No, different engine.
And the Dewdrop Diaries, I can't wait to see all of it. Thank you guys so much for being here. You gave us such incredible information about the show, about your background. You know, I am so excited to see what the children and the families think. And I can't wait to see the inspiration that this creates. I am so excited to, you know, I appreciate you guys, your time for being here. And I can't wait to continue to follow your careers and the shows that you're coming out with and be able to promote all of that. My God, you guys, you're being so revolutionary and inspiring. I appreciate it so much. And I'm so excited to see how everything goes. Rick Suvalle and Craig Carlisle, thank you so much for being here. My name is Lisa Jakofsky, and this is the No Limits podcast with Lisa. And if you would like to come on, please go to my website, www.lisajayauthor.com, and shoot me an email. Thank you guys so much again.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.